Thank you for hosting us here at your place in Berlin. And we haven't seen each other for a long time. So maybe last time we've seen in Sarajevo, in Bosnia. And you also come from the Balkans, from the region. You originally come from Bulgaria. And last year I shot a video about how to network in Bulgaria, and I had some comments that actually what I say about Bulgaria is obsolete. And then I was thinking, okay, so maybe there are some differences in networking in Bulgaria now. Maybe there are also some difference between younger and older generations. So because the younger generation has been socialized in a democratic state already, so after the Soviet times, and the older generation still during this communist past. So do you see this difference?
Thank you, Sergey, for the invitation. Hard to say if I see a difference. I can always compare only with the people who I know. For example, when I take the generation of my parents, it was different to network because, for example, at the time as they went to the university, there were not so many universities in Bulgaria. And actually the place where people networked together was at the university. And I remember, for example, my mother, she studied how to make wine. And this was the only one university, and still the only one university in Bulgaria where you can study how to make wine. And of course, she knew all of the people from this field from the university already. So either they were in her year, or they studied afterwards or before her. And I think my father was similar, despite he studied actually economy. But people who went to the university, it was not that difficult to get in touch to each other. And afterwards, when they became professionals, they still kept the contacts. The area or the network where you can network actually was more homogeneous. Mm-hmm. And it was in that way easier to network in your professional field. I would say nowadays it's much more heterogeneous. So there are a lot of universities, people do different things, people go abroad to study. There are not only few places where you can meet people who are similar to you or who are interested in the same things like you. So I mean, if you want now to get in touch with people, you have to put maybe more efforts into that than before, I would say.
Do the people maintain contacts after they finish university now?
So actually I started in Germany. I started only one semester in Bulgaria because as I finished school I was 17 years old, and I had to wait 6 months until I turned 18 before I can go to Germany to study here. So I started one semester there, and I have to say that actually I still have contacts from the first semester in Bulgaria. And from the university here in Berlin, I studied at 2 faculties. And actually from my German colleagues, I would say I do not have any contacts anymore to some of them. So, and it was also difficult in a way to get in touch with them, because I remember, for example, in Bulgaria it was very easy. Structure of the study was different. For example, here I studied communication. The first subject that I studied was actually media and communication science. It was organized in a different way than in Bulgaria. For example, in Bulgaria you start with 1 year, and until the end you go with the same year. So you meet always the same people in every course you do. And for example, here it was in one course you're with people from the second for the third semester, and another one with different people in the communication and media science. And it was not that easy actually to keep a contact for a longer period of time. So we worked during the semester, for example, for homework. But there were 2 people I had actually contact with them afterwards, and we didn't maintain it for so long period of time.
I think there is also a general trend now, so that the people are also more connected. So within this Bologna process.
Exactly, because I remember as I went to subscribe myself for the master exam, there was one lady, we met each other, I think we met in the first semester, but afterwards never ever. On the same time, I think nowadays I have the feeling that when people were in the professional field, when people were networking, there is much more this idea behind of benefiting or looking for benefit contacts. And I have the feeling that before as I observed the context of my parents, it was not so focused on benefit. It was focused on being in touch, exchange. It was a little bit different.
It was a different system of social lifts, so to say. Yeah? So then, and actually, so this is what I also observed from the generation of my mother, my father. Yes. Interesting observation. What I wanted to ask you, so as long as you also touched your studies and your time in Germany, you're still connected to Bulgaria, and even this thing so reminds me of Bulgaria somehow. So I don't know whether it is from Bulgaria. So, but how does it feel like working on Bulgaria and in Bulgaria from abroad? Yeah. So is it another feeling, or you still feel this connection, and that's why? So it is an irrelevant question. So whether it is different or not when you are there.
So it is. I have to say, I cannot say how it would be if I work in Bulgaria, because I never had the experience to work in Bulgaria. So actually, I was 18 as I moved to Germany. So I started here, and afterwards, as I started working here, I didn't have the chance actually to work in Bulgaria. I had the chance to work with different organizations, also people from Bulgaria, but I haven't been on place there to experience the everyday working life there. So what I know about the everyday working life there is from different friends and persons, and of course they have different experience. For example, I have friends working in the NGO sector there. It's different than, for example, people who are working in a ministry or in the
IT,
in the municipality or in the IT. So there are different cultures, and also I have also people, for example, who live in Bulgaria, but they do not work actually for Bulgarian companies. They live there, but they work, I would say, for 10 years for companies abroad. Their whole team is somewhere abroad. They're in touch. I mean, everything that we experience now during the pandemic and the situation and the lockdown, here in Germany, I have friends in Bulgaria, and they're experiencing this for 10 years already. I mean, to work from home and to work with teams of people who are from Canada or from Great Britain or from India. So it's different. But for me, your question was about how does it feel for me to work also with Bulgaria and also with the region, I would say, with the region in Southeastern Europe. For me, this is very important part of my life, because I feel connected to this region, of course. And I feel that I know how many things function there. I still know, and I think it's it's also very important that I perceive also my work is very meaningful. Also, not only because of the connection to the region, but also of the type of the work, because it's in the field of development cooperation. So it's anyway a meaningful work. But of course, the connection to the region is also very important to me, because it's also part of my identity, and it's also it makes it also easier to me to live abroad, because otherwise I will be very homesick probably. And thanks to this option to work with different people from different countries in the region, probably I do not feel so homesick on the one hand. And on the other hand, of course, I'm very interested in the development there, and how and in the possibilities and opportunities actually for the region. So this is why I'm really happy to be in the position to be able actually to observe and to follow this. So of course, there are also other regions in the world that I perceive as very interesting, and I can imagine also to work for them and with them, because it would be also very enriching for me as a person. But of course, this connection is also somehow very not personal, but it makes it easier for me to live abroad. And maybe something just to add, I think something that's also very important to me is that I had the luck until now also to work with colleagues in Germany who are also experienced in other countries, who spend some part of their life, for example, in Eastern Europe or abroad. And I would say that these people, they're also very sensitive, and they're also they have very good basis for intercultural understanding. And this is something I think that makes the job also different, because I have the feeling that these people, they have more feeling and understanding also for other people, for other cultures, and in a way different than, for example, I don't know, if you have a normal job in the bank, I would say. Probably, I don't know, maybe in the bank we will be, I'm sure there will be also very good colleagues, but maybe the interest or the experience they have will be different, and it would take maybe a little bit more time to find out the common base.
Yeah, so we started talking not only about Bulgaria, but also about the whole region, and you dedicated a significant part, and still dedicating a significant part of your professional life to Southeast Europe. You used to run the program Balkans Landscape Hub in 11 countries, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so and also your current job at Brot für die Welt, Bread for the World, is also connected to the region. Well, for an outsider as I am, it looks like so these crazy Balkans, these crazy Balkan people, very open, friendly, and hospitable. So, but still, so a kind of homogeneous, So, irrespective of whether they come from Serbia or from Croatia or from Bulgaria and so on and so forth. So do you see the differences between these nations there? So and also in the terms of how they meet people, how they talk to the people, some things which are peculiar for some nations and which are not relevant for others.
I think it's a very difficult question.
Of course.
Because in general, from my point of view, it's very difficult to generalize, actually. For me, for example, it's also very difficult to say the Bulgarians are like that and that and that. And sometimes, for example, when I read some comments after some articles in the Bulgarian newspapers, there are people, of course, commenting the Bulgarians and so on and so on. And I think, okay, but who are the Bulgarians? The one who is commenting is also a Bulgarian, and it's very difficult to generalize. So I think in general, of course, there are a lot of differences. I mean, also between the people in one country, because it also depends on, on the field of work, on the personal background, on the economic situation. So I remember at Mythos we had one training. I don't remember exactly the topic, but it was about intercultural communication and work. And actually the idea was that, for example, people, let's say football fans from Russia and football fans from Bulgaria and Germany, they have much more in common than, for example, football fans from Russia and people working at the National Science Academy in Russia. So actually that's between different social groups in different countries, there are more differences. And between certain social groups from one country and other country, there are more common issues actually than others. So I think from my point of view, it's I perceive it as very reasonable idea. I think maybe what is common for most of the countries in the region is really that it's not that this is actually very easy to get in touch with people. So I think this is very this is something I can generalize. It's easy to get in touch with them. It's easy to talk about different topics with them.
But is it also easy to make friends?
Yes, I would say it's also easy to make friends. It depends on also how do you define friends. But
not Facebook friends.
Yes, not Facebook friends. But it's easy to become how to say, to establish friendly contacts and contacts that you can maintain also for a longer period of time. That's easy, and also to maintain contacts that are not only focused on a professional. I mean that focus not only contacts, how to say, or to maintain also contacts that are actually where people are interested in you. So that's easier. That's easier, I would say, compared, for example, to here, from my point of view.
Or to Sweden, so so they say, so you need 10 years to really get to what the Swedes are thinking, so just and where you are invited, so to say, so or even more. Yeah.
And I would say what's also common for the region is actually I would say that people have also quite a very good professional level. Especially I would say the older generation also, because they experienced also very good education. I mean also before the changes. I mean the level of education changed a little bit afterwards.
For worse, you think?
Yes. At least a school, but also in the university, I would say there's something like nowadays it's something like an inflation of education, especially at the university level. There are different reasons for this, but I would say really that most of the people I met and I had the chance either to work or to be in contact in my voluntary work or in personal contact, they are very good prepared for a professional life. And I mean people from the older generation, but people also, let's say, who are now 35, 40 years old. So and this is of course advantage. I mean it's also advantage of the region. It's very pity because very often actually the countries when people are looking for foreign investors are saying yes, cheap labor work. But actually I would say cheap labor work is not the advantage of this region, and it shouldn't be the advantage. The advantage is that actually there are still a lot of good educated people.
Yes, you talked about football fans. So, but I wanted to take another approach and ask you about churches. So, because, well, so in Bulgaria, the principal religion is Orthodox. But for example, you used to visit a Catholic school of journalism here in Germany. So now you have been working for Protestant assistance NGO. So do you see that different directions of Christianity have something in common and have the common ground, the common understanding? So just how do you feel like working for such a great initiative as Brot für die Welt?
I feel very good, and I think there is a lot in common between the different denominations. I mean, between the Catholic, Protestant, and Orthodox also churches. And I remember very good also the time at the Catholic Journalism School, and also we have every year an annual meeting. In the last 2 years I didn't have the opportunity to attend them, but before I had this opportunity, and I have to say that how to say the common Christian ground and background, it's actually something that makes it very easy to maintain contact, for example, and to be in contact with other people and to find a common ground for working together, thinking together, and also exchanging, also on a personal level. This is really interesting because you asked me about the contacts from the university. I do not maintain contacts from the university anymore, but from the Catholic Journalism School, yes, I maintain still contacts, also private contacts. So, and I notice also the atmosphere, also at the annual meetings, it is different than the atmosphere when you go to a normal conference, for example. It's different, and I think this is exactly this background. I mean that there is the Christian background that's connecting the people, from my point of view, and it's also the same at my current organization where I work now. I was very happy from the very beginning that I work with people who are religious and who do not need an explanation. Why do you believe in God? Do you know? Because I remember many years ago, during my student work at one company, I had one colleague. He was definitely atheist, and it's completely okay for me. But it's also completely okay for me when somebody is Muslim or Christian or from other religion, because it's part of the person and also of her or his identity. But I remember he always made jokes with me because I'm religious. And I really, and I was really upset. And he was a very nice guy, and I also appreciate him very much. But it was really, it made me really upset. And I was very thankful that I went to an organization where I do not need to explain why I go to the church, why do I believe, and why, why I'm religious. For example, this is something that I appreciate very much. And because of your question, if they have a lot of in common, I think that Catholics, Protestant, and Orthodox, from my point of view, as somebody who belongs to the laity, not to the cleric, I think they have a lot in common. But what is also very interesting, I still notice that, of course, on each side, there are prejudices about the others.
Interesting.
And sometimes they're very similar, also the prejudices. But and from my point of view, what is really important is to have the possibility to be in contact together, to be in contact with each other. And I mean, the more exchange and the more dialogue and meetings between the different between people with from different denominations and also between the different churches, the better will be also the understanding. I think, of course, there are some dogmatic differences, but as I didn't study theology, so I cannot assess from my point of view the dogmatic differences, but I can assess the values behind our belief, and I mean the values, they are the same values, and I remember, for example, few years ago, we went with three colleagues actually, to a business visit in Bulgaria, and we met different organizations. And I remember, maybe on the last day or the day before the last day, actually we met two priests and also people from the same church, and we went together with them to have a lunch. And I remember how interested these people, I mean from the two priests and also they were Orthodox priests and also the people from their church, how interested they were to get to know more about the Protestant life in Germany, how do they organize here catechesis, how does it look with the baptism here, how do they celebrate this and that fest. And I thought, okay, so people, they're really curious to get to know more about us, especially these people.
So, in one word, so Christians are good networkers. So,
I think they could be very good networkers because when you go to other, but I mean also, for example, I have also friends who are from other religions, and I have to say with these people, of course, was also easy to have. To be also easy in contact and to exchange with them because, how to say, I mean, we of course we do not share the same religion, but we have understanding for each other, and we have understanding also that maybe some things I do different, or they do different in a different way, but I understand, okay, because there is a religious background, and I respect this, and I think also they respect this because I have also friends coming from Central Asia and with Muslim who are Muslims, for example. I mean, because we have this background to believe in God, it makes it also in a way easier to understand each other.
You have been working and also communicating to so many people of very different backgrounds, different nations, different religions. So just what are your networking secrets, if you can share with us?
Actually, I do not have secrets, networking secrets. I have other secrets, but not networking secrets. But maybe I think when communicating with people from different backgrounds and also different countries, I mean, what maybe always motivated me was that I was very curious to get to know more about these people. And I was also very interested in other countries and in other habits, or just to know more about other people. I remember also in school, one of my favorite subjects was geography, and this is what actually motivated me always to be excited when I meet new people, and especially people coming from somewhere else, and people who can share something maybe different, but maybe also same with me or common. Maybe what I think the field where I'm not so good is in the networking when I have some hidden agenda because I cannot do it. So what I cannot do is, for example, or what I still cannot really, how to say, it's just to go to an event just for networking. So for me still it's necessary that at the event I learn also something new, that there is also some, how to say, that also in the program, in the agenda, there are also interesting issues and subjects or topics I can learn something interesting, and that there are also people who I perceive as interesting. But for example, if there is a concrete issue, for example, if I have to talk with somebody due to professional reasons, then I will not go to an event just to network. But for example, if I want to talk to somebody, I will call the person directly. I think sometimes, I don't know, sometimes there's the approach to go somewhere to network with people, to have a small talk, and afterwards to approach them. This is not my way. For example, when I want to approach somebody, I will approach the person directly. And I will not go to event just to have a small talk, but I mean, there are so many ways how to find the contacts of somebody. You can make a short research on internet, you can check at the organizational website, and you can find the contacts, and then I will just call the person directly and he'll say what is the reason. Because I think...
Are you calling, or are you also messaging or writing an email? So?
Usually I prefer to write an email. Also also in my private field, also either to write an email or message, or to write on Facebook, I mean with friends. But when it's official, I will write an email, because I think the advantage of an email is a person can read it when it fits timely to her or to him. Because, for example, if I call somebody at the moment that's not that good, it could be difficult to have a good conversation. And first I will ask if the person has time. I will say why I'm actually approaching this person, what is the reason, because I think it's very important for somebody in order to assess if it makes sense really to get in touch with me or not. Because it's when you read it, you can say, okay, I can really contribute to the issue, I cannot contribute. And when I cannot contribute, then it's easier to say, no, thank you very much, but in the concrete issue, I cannot really be helpful for you. And then I will ask also the person when it would be appropriate to get in touch via telephone or other device, other means. But of course, it depends on, for example, if I need urgently something, then I will call. Because, can I give you one example? I organized many years ago for the Catholic Journey School one visit in Bulgaria, and we also approached the president of Bulgaria. And first I wrote via first actually I was in touch here in Berlin with the chief of who was responsible for public relationships. And I told her what's about, and that in 6 months we planned to go to Bulgaria with a group of journalists, and actually we would like to talk to the president. And she told me, okay, now it's too much time in advance because our program is changing every time. It's better when you approach me like 2 months in advance. And then I approached her via email, but no answer came. Then I approached her again via email, no answer came. And I thought, okay, maybe I have to call, but in the same time I know when you are for example, when I'm very busy, it's for me always better when somebody approaches me via email. At one moment I called on the phone, but on the official phone. And there was another colleague who was, I don't know, not that motivated actually to help me further with the question. And one day later, I called her on the mobile phone, and then it functioned. So I received a positive answer actually one day after we had the call on the mobile phone. So in that case, it really depends on the people. But I remember first I tried via email, and as it didn't work, then I had to call.
So, but you had already the contact of this person.
Exactly. I had already all contacts of this person, so it was easier to do it.
Thank you very much for this talk.